Hey everybody, welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I am your host, Chris Bello, and today I've got Brady Morgan on the show. Brady is the founder of Super Virtual Assistants, and he's also the host of the Entrepreneurism podcast. I was like Entrepreneurism, right? That's Entrepreneurism, entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial. Those are all kind of tongue
all
twisters.
the same thing.
Yeah. So Brady, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, we were joking before we hit record, like, oh, I haven't talked to you in a while because we just talked a couple of days ago as of the time of this recording when, I was on your show. So Really excited to have you on my show and just share your story and what you've been up to. So I guess tell us your life story. When did it all begin? When did you start entrepreneurship? Have you been entrepreneurial or let's dive in, man.
I'm one of those people that hasn't always been entrepreneurial. Like I didn't do lemonade stands. I didn't flip baseball cards, nothing like that. I knew I wanted to do something, right? So in college, I was always thinking like these business ideas, and obviously ideas mean nothing without execution. So I never did anything.
Right.
So I graduated with a finance degree, went on to work at UBS, which is a global investment bank, left there to go work as a financial analyst at Vanderbilt. And then while I was at Vanderbilt, I actually started my podcast. So this was August of 2019. So I've only been in this space for a little over a year.
Yeah, I can't
believe it. I knew I wanted to own my own business, but I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to start something just to start it. So a podcast is a really easy way to get in because one, the amount of success you have is definitely predicated on me. Low investment, low barrier to entry. So I'm just going to tell my story. So I started that really detailing me and my wife's journey towards financial freedom. The podcast was called Budget Trek. Obviously, it's called Entrepreneurism now since I rebranded, but really just talking about personal finance, background finance, how you can strategize on here and there and whatever. But I realized I like talking to entrepreneurs better. There's a bigger impact when an entrepreneur comes on and gives advice, whether it's digital marketing, how to do sales, how to talk to people, whatever. So I shifted my focus to interviewing people on topics like that. So over this past summer, I was focusing on growing Super Virtual Assistants, another business that's no longer here. And I stopped doing the podcast for like 2 months or so, just to shift my focus and my time.
Yeah.
But I knew I needed to come back to it because it's a great way to grow your personal brand, a great way to promote your business, great way you can make money through it. It's just a good outlet and tool to have. Well, I was like, okay, but Budget Trek, I don't even like this name. It's confusing. People don't know how to, my podcast isn't even about finance anymore. So I rebranded to Entrepreneurism. And I did that about a month ago. And since then, I'm releasing episodes 3 times a week. Just interviewed the first CEO of Netflix, Mark Randolph, interviewed people like Brad Lee, Patrick Bet-David's going to come on later. So it's really cool what a podcast can do for you. So I'm using my podcast and the outlet to obviously promote Super Virtual Assistants and just kind of going from there, man. I definitely want to do more in the whole business and entrepreneurial world, but I don't want to rush into it. I don't want to start something just because it's trendy or there's opportunity. I want to set up a business for a long-term play and build an empire. So focus now just on the podcast and growing it and expanding my network with people like you and just kind of going from there. So that's kind of my entrepreneurial journey.
That's awesome, man. And I was just on another call this morning with someone else on the show, and he's hitting the circuit hard, getting on other shows, promoting. A lot of people who've been in business or they've owned businesses, maybe they may be a little older of a demographic, right? They weren't really on social media. Dean Graziosi said that when I talked to him,
right?
How, he was a hot shot and he was on infomercials, but some kid was basically like, oh, he has 10,000 followers. He's a nobody. And that's when he realized, okay, I need to start taking this seriously.
Exactly.
And the guy that I was talking to this morning, Jeff Lerner, he was saying that you got to have a personal brand of some sort. Just go out there, add value. Mm-hmm. You don't even really have to know what your product is going to be or what you're going to sell. Just like you said, document the journey. That's what I did, man. I still haven't figured out a course to sell or a group to have, but the referrals, the good vibes. I had a person that I interviewed. They used me as a real estate agent. I closed a deal with them last month, $10,000 commission. So that was a cool sign of dude, add value, not even knowing how it's going to come back. If you give, it's going to come back, right? That abundance mentality.
Yeah. And I completely agree with that, man. I think people try so hard to just push out some sort of product, like a course or a mastermind. And it's it doesn't really make sense. Like we did that through financial automation. So financial automation was, we were going to automate people's finances, digital CFO. It didn't work, right? We didn't make any money. We were losing money through the money we were spending on subscriptions and payroll and all that sort of stuff. It sounded like a great idea on paper, but it just didn't work, right? Or maybe we just didn't have the right tools to make it work. But through financial automation, we created a course, and it was just kind of random. And like looking back, I'm like, that was just random. You know, it's like there's just random. It wasn't even about finance. There was everything in there, you know? So it's like, you just got to be clear. And when people resonate with what you're doing and it's clear, they get behind it, right? And like through the podcast, like I can name drop, you know, I can stat drop, whatever. So it's like, okay, let's create something around the podcast, maybe like a mastermind or maybe podcast consulting for people who are just starting or, you know, whatever. Yeah. Because I have the knowledge there, right? And I think people rush into trying to create something around something they don't have a ton of knowledge about yet. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And I think we're all guilty of it. I mean, I did that, you know, when I quit my job and I came into the ClickFunnels thing and I was in the group and I went through the boot camp and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to make a funnel. Let me sell something. Let me put some Facebook ads out there. And I didn't really have anything to sell. So I made something. I tried to sell cell phone cases, like all kinds of random stuff. And I never made any money. Like I would just spend money into the black hole of Facebook ads without getting anything back. But you know, you learn how to make a website. You learn how to make a landing page. You learn how to do email marketing. And now with the idea that works, it's like you iterate faster, do landing page, follow up, get response. Like you know how to build all of it. And now that you find the right product market fit, it's just a no-brainer and you're off to the races. You don't have to figure stuff out because you already did on your idea that made no money.
No, and I agree with that, man. You know, it's like people have business ideas and it sounds great, but building the business is hard. Like, especially if you're by yourself, there's so many different hats you have to wear. Yes. If you're not good at marketing, you better learn. If you're not good at writing copy, you better learn. You better figure it out because not everyone has the capital to just hire that out, right?
That's the hardest part.
If you do that and you fail, that's fine because the next business you start, you already have that foundation of just knowledge. You can get to it faster, right?
Exactly.
Rather than starting a business from scratch, you're like, well, I got to spend the first 6 months just learning what the hell I'm doing. You know, it's just every failure has a purpose. You just have to find it later down the road.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a tough feeling when you make something and you put it out there. I see memories of a video that I put out 3 years ago. I didn't even have a good mic. Like I was using a regular camera and you could hear the echo in the house and stuff, right? And I boosted that ad. I tried to sell a course on, you know, flipping stuff. And so you know how it goes too. But at the same time, you look back at that and you're like, hey, I had the courage to do that. How many of your friends still have never posted a video on social media? Or, you know, they've never been on a podcast interview. They're just clocking into their job, clocking out, not trying anything new. Watching Shark Tank maybe, but they're not taking any actions on their ideas. Whereas here, you and I, we've got podcasts we're producing. You're doing 3 episodes a week now. That's a solid amount of content. And I mean, you're going to be finding people who resonate with your message and just sharing your value in your story. That's going to go a lot further than just trying to put up some kind of random product overnight and try to boost ads on Facebook, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I think people are they just have these ideas and they want to shoot for it and they fail and they're like, well, you know, that sucks. I'm done now. You know, I can't do it. It's like, dude, it takes a while. It does. And like you see on social media, people who hit it quick. And I think we talked about this, right?
Yeah.
It took them 4 months to get to 20K months. And it's like, you don't know how long they've been in the space because they might have only documented what's worked. You know?
Exactly.
You just have to understand that everybody's journey is different, right? There's people who become billionaires when they're 25, you know, i.e. Mark Zuckerberg. And then there's people like Warren Buffett who don't become billionaires until later in life in their 50s, right?
Yeah.
But it just depends on the journey you take and the route you take and the strategies you implement. But at the end of the day, progressing each and every day and just getting 1% better, like you're going to get to your goals, just don't stop. People get so discouraged because they want to be a billionaire tomorrow. It's like, dude, that means if you don't get it today, are you just done? You know, so it's like, just be realistic and have patience. But I mean, still work hard every day. You know, it's simple. It's really not that complicated.
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't know if you ever do this. I do it all the time. I'll listen to my old episodes just to see how far I've come, but also just to toot my own horn, it's like there's a lot of value in there, not necessarily from me, but from the guests, right? Like that's why we can selfishly do this to learn from people. But Dean Graziosi said something similar. I was listening to that episode where I asked him how him and Tony made mastermind.com such an overnight, such a smashing success, because like they sold out, like they had a huge, affiliates like Russell Brunson and Project Life Mastery, Stephen James. And so he's like, dude, people think like, how did you put this thing together? And you like launched it and you made all these sales in 5 weeks. He's like, dude, that didn't take 5 weeks. That took 50 years. Like Tony and I have been doing this stuff since, infomercials. And so all the knowledge that they've learned since then, now they put it together. They're in the space. They know it. They've got the affiliates. And of course it's going to take off because it's not like they just did it overnight. We know who they are. I've got books from both of them on my bookshelf, right? So it's the same thing with us. I think in 5 years from now, people are going to be like, hey, like Brady's show, do you listen to that? Or Chris's show? Like, man, I can't wait to meet him. That kind of thing. Where right now, you and I are just normal people talking. But to someone else who's listening to this, we've got some sort of celebrity status in a way. It's weird, right?
It is weird. And Russell Brunson, I haven't read his books, but I think he says it in one of his books where it's like, you don't have to know everything about a topic. You just have to know more than someone else.
That's it.
Because those are the people that pay you, right? Yeah. And like for now, right, if I were to start a podcasting mastermind right now, like today, let's say it's launched today, people would probably buy into it. Is it going to be a lot? Probably not. Am I going to have to sell people? Yes, right? But if I do this for 5 years and I get really, really good at it, I nail down what people need to learn, how they need to learn it, equipment, software, whatever, I'm not going to really have to sell anybody. It's going to sell itself.
Exactly.
But people only see, I just started this mastermind, I just launched this course, nobody bought it. It means it sucks or I suck. It's like, no, you just launched it. Like either one, nobody knows who you are.
Right.
Or two, it's not good. Right. So you can fix both of those things. One, you can just connect with people and talk to them. And two, just get smarter, and make it better. Or get people in for free and ask for their advice. How do I make this better? It's that simple. But people are just so quick to just see failure as that's it. I'm done.
That's so true. And the hardest thing is to keep going when you're not seeing any success. I mean, I'm not sure how your show has been, but I remember I talk about it all the time. Like the first 6 months of my podcast, I'd post it and they were pretty bad. When we all start, it's not that. Like I didn't even talk like I talk now. I've gotten better at speaking just from doing almost 200 podcasts. Mm-hmm. Before it's like, hey, this is Chris with the Entrepreneur Motivation. But that was literally how I was recording it in my car. And now I'm like here at home. I don't even care if the dog barks. I'm very natural and comfortable with it. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, I run my show the same way. And it's like, I was talking to somebody this morning and I was talking about how he was like, do you script your shows?
None of it,
you do research on the guests beforehand? And I'm like, honestly, no. And that might sound kind of like arrogant, right? But I've done over 100 shows. I've done less than you, but I've done over 100 shows and I've interviewed a ton of people who are very successful. And it's just the more you do it, the better you get at being able to cultivate the conversations, right? And I think people are just like, I need to have these 10 questions. I have to ask all of them. I tried that in the beginning. It's awkward.
It doesn't
work. They're talking
work.
about something. You ask a question about something completely different and the conversation doesn't flow, right?
I think I had questions like that for Dan Locke. Have you interviewed Dan yet? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was just like, yeah, you're right. You go off the script and you're like asking random questions, and entrepreneurs at that level can talk about anything for hours. You've probably seen this yourself, right? They're the best speakers. They speak on stages. Mm-hmm. They don't need to look at notes.
Well, you just get better at it, right? And it's like, even the whole research thing, if I ask you to be on the podcast, I know who you are. I know what you do.
Right.
And if I don't, for instance, before we got connected, I never heard of your podcast, to be honest. And I don't really listen to podcasts, to be completely frank. I really don't.
You're making podcasts. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd rather just make it and produce the content rather than consuming. But
smart.
Now we're connected, but I still had to do research on, okay, who's Chris? What does he do? Right?
Yeah. I listen to, whenever I'm interviewing a guest, sometimes my hack is to listen to one or two of their recent podcasts.
Yeah.
Because they might talk about their story. I kind of get a feel for, I also know how to pronounce their name. They're like, hey, this is so-and-so with the show. Okay, cool. So now I won't butcher their name when I get on the call, right?
I
But
did
I also
that.
like to connect with people too. Like I saw, you're having a kid soon, so congrats. You're having a boy.
Yeah.
It's really cool just to connect with other people.
Exactly. But I did that, butchered somebody's name. So my 7th episode was with Travis Chappell. He has a pretty big podcast. I think he has 2, World Class and Build Your Network, but he's interviewed like everyone, right? Like if it's a big name, he's interviewed them, and he does them primarily in person. Obviously now is different, but
yeah,
I didn't know his name was Travis Chappell. I did the same thing. I tried to do research on how do you pronounce his name, and Kevin Harrington, who is he was a shark on Shark Tank. He pronounced it Travis Chappelle.
Oh, so I said, you thought that was how it was?
Well, why would I think any differently?
Right, like Kevin said it, so it might be right.
Kevin said it, so I'm going to say it. So I did it, and then after I was like, shit, that was not his name.
But I mean, you know how it goes. Like people know that you're going to mess up their names every now and then, and I sometimes do it if I'm calling someone, if I get like an internet lead and there's just this hard name, I'm like, man, I shouldn't even say their name. I know I'm going to say it wrong. And sometimes they'll correct me. They're kind of like sassy, like it's actually this. And I'm sorry, I tried. I took a stab at it.
Well, for podcasts too, like there's sometimes where I don't know their name. Like I just ask them on the episode.
Or it'll say on the Zoom thing, right? Like I can see your name down there, but you can ask them, hey, how do you pronounce your last name? Right? Like we're just people, we don't all know everybody.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. I think people start podcasting, it's all got to be perfect and scripted and no ums, no uhs, and it's like it really doesn't matter, right? The value is the same either way, right? And like I remember I interviewed somebody and he said after every sentence.
Those are a little harder
for me. That episode.
Yeah, those are a little harder for me where I'm like, because I'm very conscious of how if I say like or too many times, damn it, I shouldn't have said that so many times. I sound annoying. And if they say every 3 seconds, like you said, it just took you an hour to edit it because you kind of want to keep the quality at a certain level, right?
Right. But, occasionally saying like, I don't care.
That's fine,
because that's a raw conversation. I think podcasts should be raw.
Right.
Like, I don't edit my episodes at all. Our episode, it's not edited. It's literally the conversation we had is there.
That's what it is.
An intro and an outro, and that's it.
That's how it should be because you don't want to act like you're hiding things. You're not being genuine, and people think you have to have the perfect background. I mean, I don't even think my vision board's level. It's kind of crooked, and it kind of bugs me in the camera. But whatever, the content is here, right?
My camera is like fish eye. You see how the video is curved, and I don't know how to fix it. So it's like, who cares, man? It doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's just like, I think it's the constant debate. Do I post less but make every piece of content perfect? Or do I post more and provide this more value and it's imperfect? And I think that, right? Imperfect action is not a bad thing. Just, and even with content, just release it. Exactly. You know how many episodes of Gary V's are literally just him speaking at events and you can hear the echo and you can't even understand what he's saying. Right? But it's it's crazy. And you're like, he put out content. That's all that matters. And
I still listen to them. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I can barely hear this. I hear the guy coughing and sneezing in the background.
Yeah.
And I talked about this with another guest, Ginny, on my show, probably 50 episodes or so ago. But she was mentioning that too. Like Gary just records it and he'll upload it and people listen. And I feel like at a certain level, I don't mind listening to someone like Gary. But if it's like someone listening to you for the first time and they can barely hear you, you may lose listeners. As long as we've got a good mic, which, right here we got like a $200, $150 mic. I saw you post about yours the other day. You don't need fancy equipment.
You don't.
You got a fisheye lens. That's okay. I can still see you. Right? My vision board's a little crooked. That's okay because the content is what the words that we're talking about that are dropping value, hopefully for the audience and just sharing that like, hey, just publish.
Well, and that's the thing too, man. It's like if someone's not fortunate enough to have a team, right, and you need money to have a team around you, and you spend 4 hours just creating content in the beginning for your podcast, like you're probably not making any money from creating that content. Mm-hmm. How are you making money elsewhere, right? And it's like spend 3 hours of that doing whatever, creating a mastermind or a product or doing Legion, whatever, and spend the hour on content. Exactly. People spend too much time on the wrong things. So it's like for me, I don't have a team. I have a virtual assistant. I pay $5 an hour, $200 a week. When I interview someone, we stop recording, we hop off, it uploads to my computer, upload it to Drive, I don't touch it. She does all the copy, and more than likely she can.
Man,
it's super easy, and it's like people spend so much time doing things that really don't matter, right? I post a picture or a video on my Instagram 6 days a week. I just started that like 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
But 6 days a week, and it's hard. But what makes it not hard is that my virtual assistant, Ma'an, does half of them, you know?
That's awesome.
So it's like, it's not hard to do that. You just gotta know where you're spending time and really just audit, you know?
Exactly. And I was trying to figure out, what's the one most important thing if I had to pick one thing to focus on, because right now, me being in real estate, like lead generating is everything. And I like the attraction marketing of people reaching out to me. I don't want to be cold calling and, hey, your house just expired on the market. Do you want to sell it? I don't want to do any of that. I'm sure there's opportunities there, but it's just not the conversation I like to have of, are they going to cuss me out, or are we going to talk for a minute and maybe I get a face-to-face meeting versus making content, right? So I determined that making content is my most valuable thing right now in terms of omnipresence, and having something like what you said, a virtual assistant. I just sit here and record 2 hours of talking and that's it. I don't touch it. I send it to them. Before, if I recorded a 1 hour episode, I would watch it for another hour, edit it, so 2 hours, and then I would make my own freaking cover photo on YouTube or from Canva. Oh, it became very tiresome very quickly, right?
It is. And that's the thing. It's like, just like you said, what can you do that's going to put more money in your pocket? For you, it's content, right? Yes. Everybody's business is different. Not everybody needs to create content every single day, right? But I think like for you, you need leads. You don't like cold calling people, reaching out to people. You don't like being salesy. That turns people off. So get people to come to you, Yeah,
just be educational, be informative, and add value, because that's what podcasts are. I mean, you're adding value for free. I've been doing my podcast for almost 3 years now without pitching. I mean, I tried a couple affiliate links every now and then. I'm sure, you could drop a couple products or something, grow your email list. But other than that, like, it's been straight up as much value as I can. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. You figure things out slowly, right? You get the audience, you get the traffic, you add the little email, opt in to get a free guide. Now you're building your list, and then you can follow up with products or one-on-one consultations, and we figure it out as we go. But ultimately, we're developing our branding, where no matter what we do, if we have fans, they're going to support us whether we start a new company that does X or we do consulting in Y, right?
Exactly. And I love that you said that, because it's like, if we break down monetization when it comes to podcasts, there's front end and back end, right? Front end being affiliate links and sponsorships. Now that's completely predicated on the success of the show, regardless of the value you provide. You can provide all the value in the world, but if nobody knows who you are, podcast isn't going to have that much, whatever. But then there's back end monetization, which I think is more lucrative, where you use your podcast to lure people somewhere else, right? What are you selling? What service do you have? A product? What do you do? And that's what I have. That's, I'm a mix of both, but I prefer the back end. I think back end is way better, way more lucrative. You don't have to reach out to sponsors. You don't have to prove downloads. You don't have to get ridiculed for not having enough and charging too much and stuff like that. It's like, just sell your service on the back end, get really good at that, have a podcast. Who cares how many listeners or downloads you have, but you have that social proof of like, hey, I may only have 10 listeners, but I've released 100 episodes and they're all value. So if you're going to tell me that my service is not valuable, you're wrong, because look at the value I just provided for free. What can you pay and how much more value can you get?
Right. And then the thing too with that is there's not really a great way to even figure out how many downloads shows have. There's some stuff like Chartable, and I got a dashboard in Libsyn, which is my hosting platform. But ultimately, like, I don't know where they come from, how they track it, how accurate it is. It looks cool. It makes me feel good and get butterflies inside when I see the number grow. Yeah. But ultimately, like you said, I mean, others don't know. And here's a testament to the fact of how important that is, because sometimes I'll drop, I've got a podcast, and, now a podcast is becoming like what a book used to be, where, okay, everyone's got a podcast. But at the same time, it's like, our podcasts are actually getting good download numbers and we're getting reviews.
Yeah.
It's not like we've got 5 episodes up. We've got, over 100, like you said. And I sent a link to some guy who was like, "Oh, what's your podcast?" Because, he's probably trying to see if I'm legit or not.
Right.
And I sent him my podcast. He looked at it and he's like, "Wow, bro, you've been doing this for 3 years. Like, props, you're consistent." And even if I don't have any downloads, that shows every week. Now I do 2 a week. I used to do 1. I've showed up. I've been consistent. I've never missed a week. Right. Yeah. And that alone speaks volumes, because how is that going to be when I'm your real estate agent? Right. I'm not going to drop the ball. I'm not going to hide. I'm going to show up. That's kind of the message that it shows. Yeah. So I love what you said there about the value on the back end is that longer term customer and relationship that you develop.
Well, I like that you said that, because I went to a mastermind with Travis Chappell, the guy that mispronounced his name. But it was him, Dan Fleischman, Brad Lee, Mark Brazil, Steve Sims, and a few other guys who I didn't know who they were. They were like local. Yeah. But Travis Chappell said something that Pat Flynn said, where people who start podcasts and you only care about downloads, you're going to fail. Just be consistent.
So true.
Consistency is literally the only thing that matters, because you can make so much more money from being consistent than by downloads. To be completely honest with you, when you send out sponsorship, unless you have 1 million downloads a month, which that is hard. That's a lot of people listening to your podcast. You're not going to get paid that much. Sponsorships are fine, but there's so much you got to worry about. Would I use this product or service? Am I diluting my show? Am I a fraud for promoting a product or service that I wouldn't actually use? They're only paying me $500 a month,
right?
And they're asking me questions every single day. It's like, it becomes not worth it, right? Yeah. Just provide the value and sell the service on the back end. It's less of a headache. Yeah,
I love what you said there. I've been thinking and toying about the idea of sponsors, but it always upsets me. Shows like School of Greatness or whatever with Lewis Howes.
50 million downloads.
I love, that's a great show, great content, but I'm like fast forwarding and 5 minutes in, there's still ads. And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't care about this thing. Right.
Exactly.
And even with Pat Flynn, I love people and I know they got to do it because it's their business and I want them to make money. And sometimes I listen, I'm like, okay, this is actually relevant. Let me write this down. But most of the time it's like, okay, I don't care about this mattress. My mattress is great. Skip. And so, it's kind of a personal preference, but at the end of the day, I still listen to those shows, right? It kind of annoys me. I got to forward a couple times, but I'm going to listen because the value, I'm like, okay, I know, and you know how much work it is to make a podcast for free. So I can't be mad at the guy for putting a 20-second ad in there because he's been doing a podcast for 10 years.
Well, think about it too. If you're Lewis Howes, you have that many downloads, how much you probably charge as sponsors, right? If someone says, I want to sponsor your podcast, he's probably like, all right, $50K a month minimum. Awesome. Who cares? If he loses listeners, he doesn't care, And that's the thing. It's like, if you just focus on providing value at first, regardless of how many listeners you have, provide value, be consistent, it's going to grow. Now, I can't tell you how fast it's going to grow because you got to be strategic. You got to know the right people, have the right guests. There's a lot of strategies that come into play, but that you are in direct control of just being consistent. So you can't control what people listen, how often they listen, how long they listen. Just be consistent. That's all that matters.
Powerful right there. Everybody listen to that again, because consistency is key. And even when it comes to tracking your goals, I talked about this on another podcast, maybe on yours. I can't remember. We talk about these things so many times that we forget where we said it. Right? Because even if we're sharing our story, if I tell 10 people my story, it's going to talk about oil and gas and quitting and trying to create a product that didn't work. It's the same story because that's my life, right? Unless I get Alzheimer's and I forget. But but that's the story. And people want to hear that, right? They want to hear that you're genuine. They want to hear that you're showing up. And, ultimately you're going to learn along the way. This conversation, I may get a nugget that I share on a future episode that I do later this week, right? Right. We're all just regurgitating stuff that we've heard from other books, from podcasts. It's just a matter of who has absorbed and downloaded the most information that they're actually putting to use.
Exactly. And that's the thing too. When I was in college, I mentioned how I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I thought you had to listen to podcasts, right? I would listen to Ty Lopez or listen to Grant Cardone. I listen to all their, just because I know their names. I wasn't really deep into the space.
Right.
And I wasn't using the information. I was just listening. Was I even really listening? Not
Just
really. It was just like, hey,
your
yep.
ears.
I did a podcast. I'm going to cross it off my list now. It's like, and I think that's the issue. People, and I mean, we can get into this thing, but people confuse busyness with productivity, where it's like, I read 4 books today. I listened to a podcast. I went through a course. It's like, all right, how much information did you retain?
Yeah.
Like, I did it. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, knowledge is power, right? They say that, but there's more to that sentence. Knowledge is power when that knowledge is used. Knowledge is not power if it just sits here or if you even have it. So that's my thing is like, if you're going to listen to podcasts, you're going to spend the time, even in the car, right? If you're in the car and listen to a podcast and you're not retaining the information, like don't listen to a podcast. Just listen to music. Like don't do something just to say you did it.
Yeah.
Do it for a purpose.
Yeah. And it's something that I struggle with too. Cause since I got in the whole entrepreneurship space, right? I remember the days when I would be at my cubicle at my desk job and I'd listen to music all day. Mm-hmm. The same songs I've heard 600 times. Yeah. And I love them. It would still come on, Blink-182 song. I'm like, oh yeah, I love this song. Let me listen to the whole thing. And then I flipped the switch. I started reading the books. I started listening to podcasts and audiobooks and thinking like, okay, I can do better than this. I don't want to trade time for money, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I kind of flipped that switch where I barely listen to music and I play drums for fun sometimes. And some of my friends will be like, let's learn these 3 songs, listen to it, all week. And I'm like, I don't want to listen to it because I'm listening to my podcasts. Yeah. And so I feel you on that where are you really retaining it? Because, I mean, there's sometimes I'm just throwing the ball for the dog, listening to a show, trying to get 1 or 2 nuggets. I already know most of it. Most of it's probably not being retained, right? Right. So making sure you apply the knowledge is extremely important.
Well, a lot of the information, too, is the same.
Just said a different way, right?
It's just a different way. And, like, I'll be the first to say I'm a huge reader, right? Like, last year – I've kind of slacked this year, but last year I read 3 books a month. So I read 36 books over the course of a year. That's hard, especially doing everything else. Yeah. This year I'm slacking, but I'm trying to do like 1 every 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so, taking my time. But if I start reading a book in the first few chapters, I'm like, I've read this before. Like, I'm not going to finish it, right? Like, I'm reading books right now about like overcoming anxiety as an entrepreneur, crafting your perfect week, your perfect day, whatever. And like, I am like, intentionally reading these books because I'm taking things and doing them as a result. Absolutely. Craig Ballantyne, you might know Craig Ballantyne.
Yeah, I want to get him on the show. I've been, what's it called? Downing the Empire show. I've been listening to everything. Bedros and Craig.
I think he just, I don't know, I don't listen to the show, but I think he took our podcast interview and released it on his podcast.
Sweet.
But I don't know. I don't know for sure. He asked for it, and he's like, it's one piece of content I don't have to do. I was like, yeah, sure, I don't care.
Wow, dude, if I need to start doing that and be like, hey, here's the actual episode native link if you want to share the raw file.
Yeah, so, but he is the world's most disciplined man, and his books preach it, right? It's just like, how are you crafting your day, and how was that day playing a role in you? Like, I talked to somebody this morning, and I was like, she was talking about how she's trying to start her podcast and she doesn't know how to launch. She's been talking about this for 6 months. And like, you hear that all the time. I'm going to launch a podcast. The first episode is the hardest. And I was like, all right, well, what time do you wake up? She said 3:30. I said, what time do you start working? She said around 7 or 7:30. I was like, all right, so there's 4 hours in the morning. What are you doing? And it's just like personal development stuff, like working out, meditating, yoga, whatever. And like,
I'm long morning routine,
but I'm all for morning routines. But when you spend that long, like you should feel behind when you start working. Like you've been up for 4 hours and you've done nothing, right? Because you're going to repeat that same routine tomorrow. So Craig Ballantyne talks about how the first hour of your day when you wake up is the hardest thing you have to do for the day. And I wake up at 4:30. So 4:30 to 5:30, what's the hardest thing I have to do today that I don't want to do? Right? Maybe it's something that's just boring. I'm just like, I don't want to focus middle of the day on this. Just do it. Right? And see your productivity. So I just started that last week and I'm like, dude, this is crazy.
Dude, Craig Ballantyne on the Empire show, just hearing him, that is the reason I switched from doing my workout first thing in the morning to doing my critical tasks. Yeah. And I love it. Like you said, your mind is fresh. And even if you're not a morning person, you'll become one if you just stay on your routine.
Right.
And literally, I feel so good when I go to the gym. I'm like, I already got so much stuff done. Like my emails are sent, like my social media. I kind of count metrics like DMing and engaging with people and, stuff to just be omnipresent. When people have real estate questions, they'll be like, oh, Chris just hit me up. Let me just ask him about this.
Right.
So it's kind of like those sneaky things, but I do care about a lot of my friends, obviously. So yeah, that's all part of my metrics, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I say that because it's like, you took that from the show. I took that from his book. We retained and used the information.
Yes, we implemented it.
I'm not reading his books just for the hell of reading them. And by the way, if you get Craig on your show, his DM said, do you have any of my books? And I said, no. He said, cool, what's your address? He sent me
he sent
both of his books and a kit he sells for like $200, $150, $200. And I did a giveaway. That's
awesome.
So it's like, get him on the show. He might send you some free stuff.
Yeah, man. I love that. People like that always add value. It's amazing.
But yeah, I mean, it's just the purpose of like, if you're going to listen to a podcast, retain the information and don't just do it for the hell of it. Like that bugs me. People brag about reading books and like, I never understood it, right? There's a guy by the name of John Danes who lives in Nashville. And he talked about how I was just starting as an entrepreneur. He talked about how he's like, dude, when you're building a business, like you don't have time to read books. You don't have time because you're not retaining the information you're doing just to do it. Right. I don't have the thought power to just like, how am I going to implement this? Yeah. And I was, thinking in my head, he's not self-development or focusing on self-development. And now I get it. When you're busy, the last thing I want to do is waste time reading a book that I'm not retaining.
Yeah. I know it's kind of like a fine line. I know Andy Frisella talks about just reading 10 minutes or 20 minutes a day, right? 10 pages a day. Yeah. And I've been doing the Miracle Morning for like 2 or 3 years or something now. Every morning, 1 hour routine, I do that first before I get into that critical activity because it kind of like helps me not just jump into stressful stuff.
Right.
So I know that's kind of there's little bits and pieces of everything, but I think, I can't remember if it was Grant Cardone who said, if you just get one nugget from a book, like it was worth it. If you can read something in a $12 book that makes you $1,000 or $10,000, like worth it. Right. And that's the thing for me and for you, from what it sounds like. Listen for that little nugget. If you find something, I write ideas down all the time. Like if I see something in a book, I will write it down and be like, I have to implement this. And that's how I've gotten to where I am. I make little tweaks here and there. I used to work out first thing in the morning. Actually, I used to work out at 6 p.m. every day. I'd be tired, take pre-workout way too late in the day, right?
And then not sleep later. And yeah,
you go to sleep later. You can't go to sleep because you had pre-workout. You had 300 milligrams of caffeine at like 7 p.m.
Yeah.
It doesn't work too well. And then
I completely resonate with that though, man. It's like
you're figuring it out.
To find the nuggets, but don't read just to say you did it.
Yeah. There's something else too that I talked about it on an episode called Just in Time versus Just in Case, right? Just in case is like learning for the sake of learning. You're just trying to fill your mind with random gibberish and you're not even going to use it. It's kind of like what they do in school oftentimes.
Yeah.
And then just in time is like, if you're building a business, you're building some kind of specific business, you read a book on the next step that you're having a problem with. That's something that you can apply right away. And then you get to the next roadblock, you get a book on that. So it sounds like you're reading books on how to address specific things in your life that you want to improve, right?
Yeah. And that's what I've shifted, right? Last year just started the whole entrepreneurial thing, but I wasn't reading books for a purpose. I like to read for the sake of reading, but I was reading just business books in general. Like it didn't matter, and Tillin Fertitta is a billionaire. He released a book.
Shut Up and Listen, or was it?
Shut Up and Listen. It's really not that good. And people are like,
but it's Tillman, so everyone's going to read it still. Yeah.
Yeah. But when a billionaire releases a book, you read it, you get it. And I'm like, I understand that, but it's the same stuff. There's nothing pivotal in here that I can use. Just like it's his story. Get good at this, get good at that. I'm like, I know.
I've heard it. I have FOMO for sure, fear of missing out. I'm like, well, what if there's that one nugget? And it happened with events before COVID and everything. Like there'd be that event or that seminar or that conference. And you're just like, well, like it's probably going to say the same stuff I already know. And so I kind of flipped a switch at a certain point, with real estate, like, hey, I'm done training, I'm not going to learn from reading another book. I'm going to learn from getting clients, making mistakes, and doing it. And, fast forward a year later, it's like all the people that I started with are still taking freaking trainings and courses and, let me take my legal class update. I'm going out there, hey, I don't know all the rules. I'm going to find out when they find me. If I get in trouble, they'll let me know, right? Just push ahead.
Just do it.
Just do it. 10X, like Grant would say, right? I just have that energy. Like, let's just go, right? Let's just do it.
Well, I think people too, let's take marketing, for example. People think they got to learn everything, right?
There's
before
a lot.
They launch Facebook ads, email, copywriting, all that stuff. And it's like, just figure it out when you need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Am I the best at Instagram? No, but I'm not going to read a book on it because I'll figure out strategies when I need to figure them out, Right. So it's like, don't just waste your time learning things that you don't really need right now,
Such a good tip. And even with, so you said right now you're doing super virtual assistants as well. I know you kind of said you stopped it for a while, but you're going back into it full time.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Awesome. So like, I'm assuming that you have, and I looked at your site too, you've got assistants to assist people and you've got a team in place, right? So improving your business, staffing virtual assistants. Awesome. Yeah. So
well, that site is horrible. So dude,
it's a site though. You got it up.
We have the site up, right? But we have to tweak it a lot. But it's on WordPress. I don't know how to use WordPress. So one of our guys that's in the business, he's doing it. But yeah, I mean, basically just placing low wage, highly skilled employees for business owners to do random tasks you don't want to do.
Exactly. And so, I mean, I love the idea of that because like I said earlier in this discussion is I was crazy for 2 years. I'd record the episode. I'd have to edit it. Sometimes I just upload it as is. And, there were some mistakes or whatever. And I could have let that go way earlier. Like right. You and I, we don't have to learn how to edit videos. And even if it's just cutting out an if it's excessive, why am I sitting there cutting out 50 ums? It should be something I delegate. I could pay someone to do it. And so that frees us up to have 5 more calls in a week because we're not sitting there editing a video and creating the thumbnail in YouTube and stuff.
But people are scared because it's an investment, right? You have to pay someone consistently and, okay, what can I make with this extra time? And Brad Lee said at one time where he's like, how many hours are in a week? How many hours do you work? And people are like 40, 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
And he's like, how many people do we have on our team? And I don't know. Let's just say 10 because I don't know how many people he said. He's like, okay. He's like, so we don't have 40 hours a week. We have 400 hours. Right? So think about that. It's like you add a virtual assistant that's working full time. You now have 80 hours, assuming you only work 40 hours, right?
That is a great way of looking at it.
Yeah. So you now have more time. That's the key and the hack to getting more time. You hire people to do things that you don't want to do, right? If you're editing content, you're editing episodes, you're sending follow-up emails, like someone will do that for $3, $4, $5 an hour,
Yeah.
So finding them or using a business like ours or whoever else's, I don't care who you use, but just get a VA. It's simple and it's good to have.
Yeah. And for everyone listening, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, like I admit I've been doing my podcast for like 3 years and I haven't really made much money from it other than like a couple of referrals and a real estate deal. And I haven't even really tried to. It's just been fun for me and I've been growing an audience and I know that I'll figure it out eventually once I've got the traffic and the loyal fans, like they'll buy anything that I sell. And I want it to be a good product. Like you said, I don't want to be selling some like mattress I've never used or whatever. I want to make sure it's something that I actually resonate with and that I think will be of value to the users. But at the end of the day, it's like it doesn't matter because I'm still paying $200-$300 a month to have my virtual assistants edit all my stuff, take all that off my plate, check my emails, reach out to people to like book them on my show.
Right.
Because I know that otherwise I'd be spending 5-6 hours a month doing that and not making money on my show. I'd rather spend less time and make no money on it, right?
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I mean, people see it as a cost. I mean, see it as an investment, right?
Investment.
I mean, you're getting time back. And like, what could you do with that time? We tell people like, okay, what could you do with that extra time, right? Could you
hang out with your kids?
More sales calls? Could you just not work, right? Could you just relax? That's important too. So it's just thinking about, okay, time is very important. Get that in your head. Where can your time be better allocated?
Yeah.
Hire out everything that can't be or that's not beneficial to you, you know?
Absolutely. So man, tell me about, I know we got a couple minutes, like 10 minutes left. Tell me about Super Virtual Assistants. Like how has that been? Have you been building out a team like based out of a certain country, or you kind of got a couple of virtual assistants in different time zones? If you don't mind sharing.
We work mainly in the Philippines, right? Cool. So Philippines is, in my opinion, the best route to go.
All three of mine are from the Philippines. Yeah.
Yeah. So we focus on lead generation, social media management, and social media content creation. Those are two different things, right? Two different skill sets. Cold calling and really just administrative assistance, random things, whatever, emails, whatever. So we focus on that. And of course, they're all at different price points, right? But our process is, let's hop in, let's see what you need. Now, we don't suggest you're like, oh, I need all 5 of those, right? Because at the end of the day, it's still an employee. It takes work to train them and to hire them and manage them and whatever. And the false belief is that they come in fully trained on your business. And I'm thinking, okay, if I go work at an investment bank, I have to train
for like a month or two.
Finance, I know investment banking, but I still have to train on the culture and what they do and what my job is and stuff like that. So it's not that way. We train them to a degree, right? But at the end of the day too, we're not going to hire a lead generation expert to do content creation for you. We're going to find someone that's good at content creation and hire them in. Not only is our focus on selecting a good VA, but it's also making sure the client is educated. So we have a short, like 30-minute, maybe an hour training, and it's like that on purpose.
That's great.
Let's just go through how to manage, how to train, how to delegate, because it's new. It's new. It's the new ballgame for a lot of people, right? Let's go in. Let's go train ourselves before we hire the VA. And like the best part of it is like, what do you even delegate? People are like, yeah, I need to delegate stuff. It's like, well, what? You know, when this VA is in, they're expecting you to put them to work. You're like, you got to know what you're delegating. Yeah, SOPs. Make your life easy. Create SOPs, you know? So we have a little sheet. It's a simple little Excel sheet. Stuff that you don't want to do, stuff that you shouldn't be doing, and stuff that you don't know how to do, right? 3 different categories. Beautiful. What you delegate first is stuff that you don't want to do. Focus on that. I don't want to send emails to clients. I don't want to follow up with them, right? And see how everything's going. Delegate it, right? Give them a template, let them send it. So when you have something like that in your business, doing things you don't want to do, now you can focus on actually making more money for your business. Then you can hire a second VA, right? Maybe you shouldn't be doing content creation because you're not good at it. Hire a content VA, right? So it's all about knowing where you stand now in terms of what you need to delegate now, and then figuring out, okay, now what can I delegate later? Now I need to make more money to where I can hire that out later, right?
Exactly.
The process, you know? So is a VA for everyone? No, it's not, right? If you don't have a lot to do.
I think it should be. Like you can outsource so much more than you think, right? And exactly. I wish I had talked to you sooner because I could have used a list like that. I hire the VA and then I'm like, crap, like, what do I make her do? Right?
Yeah.
And I got her doing stuff like scheduling haircuts for me now. Like anything I think of, I just add it to an endless list of Asana to-dos in my Asana dashboard. And I just let her know, hey, whenever you get time, just do it. Let me know how long it took and I'll pay you.
Right.
On her system.
Well, people too, you know, I think people are scared like, oh, it's the Philippines.
They're going to take advantage of me. And
it's like there's software's out there to protect you, right? Like if we talking passwords, like LastPass, Keeper Security, I'm sure there's more. Yeah. You can share passwords and they don't know what it is, right? Or
set limits on credit cards.
I don't want to spend money on software. Like Asana is free. We use Monday.com. Monday.com is about $100 a month, but you can even use Excel. Like you don't have to have anything fancy, right? So
excuses. Really there's so many excuses out there.
Exactly. It's really not hard and it's really not that expensive. And you know, it's like, okay, we're paying $200 a week. Great. How much is that a month? About $800 a month. Like
how much is it? How much time is it buying you back? If you look at it that way.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And if you were to hire a American employee, you're going to be paying about $800 a week or $1,000 a week to get them to do the same thing. And probably at the same
sometimes
quality.
They're not as hardworking.
Exactly, man. So yeah, VA. I mean, again, I still have the belief VAs aren't for everyone. I think everyone could use a VA. But everyone is ready to have a VA. If that makes sense, you know?
Right.
So it's just really seeing where you're at in your business. And people say, I need to delegate. So how much are you working on your business? Like a few hours a day. It's like, no, dude, come on.
Like you can handle that, right?
You can handle it, dude. And people see other people delegating, so they want to.
Right.
It's like
right.
there's a process to this.
Well, you think of all the big CEOs. I mean, like Jeff Bezos, he's not sitting there packing up boxes at the Amazon warehouses. Mm-hmm. He's at that other level where it's just like, man, they got Amazon, like instant movies and Prime and acquired Whole Foods. He's thinking of those big things.
Yeah, but think about it though. When he started Amazon, he was driving the packages to the post office.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
he didn't hire that out. He's like, I can do it myself. You know, it's like, why would I hire it out? So
one step at a time.
There's power in both doing things that you can do, but also understanding what could Jeff Bezos have been doing with that time. Maybe nothing because it was just starting out. But you just got to know, like, what can I do with this time? If you don't have leads coming in for extra sales calls, don't delegate. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
if you don't have business, first, get business.
Have
first.
too much to do. Yeah. Have too much to do before you start delegating.
Exactly. When the phone's ringing and you can't keep up with all the incoming clients and leads, that's when it's time to get some support and get some help because you're letting money fall through the cracks, right? Exactly. You've got people willing to give you money, but you can't handle all the calls and they're going to the next person, right?
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Really good tips there, man. I wanted to talk a little bit about that too, because I know you have the podcast and your virtual assistant business. So I know we got a couple of minutes left, but was there anything else you wanted to talk about or just any valuable nuggets you want to drop before I let everyone know where to find you?
No, I mean, I think the biggest thing we talked about with the podcast, or really anything, is just consistency, right?
Yes.
And that can be, relevant to anyone, like a podcast release consistently. But I think just show up consistently every day, right? There's days you wake up and you're like, I don't want to do anything. I have those days. I'm sure you have those days. There's days I would rather be doing something else. But if you remember like your why did I start this? What's my end vision? What's my end goal? It helps you show up. Right? Even being organized. That's something Craig Ballantyne talked about. You got to be organized. You can't plan your week on Monday. You got to plan your week your next week, this week.
Right. Like spend Sunday to plan your week and then plan your next day the night before. You can't
right.
I think you said that on a recent podcast. Like if you're planning your day that morning, you're already behind. You should know what you're
already
doing.
Behind. But all that being said, the more organized you are, the easier it is to be consistent. And the more consistent you are, the more success you're going to have.
Exactly. And I mean, it takes time. It takes time to build these things up. I'm one of those guys who has all these ideas jumbled up in my head. Mm-hmm. And I kind of write it on 15 different Post-it notes. And then I found Asana. And it's like, cool. Now I can put my high priority stuff up here and my low priority stuff down there. Right. Now I can add another board and bring my personal assistant and say, hey, this is yours. Yep. These are your tasks. Right. And I have her assign homework to me. She's like, please reply to this person's email. Like you haven't done that for 5 days. Okay. Thank you. But yeah, man, where can our audience go to check out your podcast, to connect with you, to see what you have to offer with your virtual assistants and everything?
Yeah. I mean, I'm most active on Instagram at Brady Morgan _. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think that's where we connected first too, or Facebook, and then podcast called the Entrepreneurism Podcast. The website is entrepreneurism.show. And then I'm on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I'm on YouTube. I'm not good at YouTube, so I have like 3 views.
I'm trying to get better at YouTube too.
I don't know how to do it, man, but I'm trying. But yeah, I'm on all platforms. Just at Brady Morgan _ for Instagram is going to be the best.
Awesome, man. I'm going to link all of that up in the show notes. And once again, thanks so much for your time, the nuggets. And it's just fun to talk to another podcaster about growing the show, because I get nuggets too. So well, thank you once again, man. And we'll be in touch. Okay.
Awesome.